Welcome back to the Game Changers podcast. I'm your host, Jay Taft, and I'm with a very, very special guest today, Lee Taft. This is my father, aka Daddy-O in the phone. I'm super excited that we get to do a podcast together. I've learned so much from him, regardless of just like being my dad, but from a coach figure, on and off the court. So I'm really pumped to have him on this podcast. We're going to be chatting today a lot about just father-daughter dynamic or coach-to-kid dynamic, because we had a very rare relationship on the court where we just got along really well. And it's sad to say that it's rare, but it was. So I just wanted to bring him on and talk about that from a parent standpoint and from a coach standpoint now that I'm a coach. So hi, Dad. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. This will be fun.
Yes, really fun. So just give us a little rundown of like what you're doing right now. What's going on in your life?
Absolutely. So, I got back into coaching. As you know, I last year took over a small school where your brother goes, and I had the opportunity to take over the whole program for basketball. So, you know me, once I take it over, I dive in with the whole body, and I spend a lot of hours per day, even when I'm not there, coaching the kids and building their athletic program. Right now we're in summer, so we're spending time athletic development wise, strength wise. We actually this morning we did a really good strength workout. We did some movement training, and then we did some really good skill, and then we taught them how to play off a 3-on-3 concept. So it was a good day. It was a good day. So that's pretty much what I'm doing now. I mean, I still get my little traveling in and speaking at conferences here and there, but not nearly as much as we did when you were young. And
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, so that's it. That's kind of what I'm doing, just staying busy with it.
For sure, for sure. And for you guys who don't know, I have two other siblings that he's been able to coach, Bailey and Brennan. And it's really cool because I think we're all extremely unique, especially in our basketball journey, but also too, just like in our relationships. And especially from like Bailey to Brennan, like us being girls, him being a guy. So it's just like a different dynamic, which I think is like super cool. But first of all, um, let's just like go all the way back when you first coached us, like even in like the YMCA, like little league and like those kinds of things. Did you ever have like a reservation of like, I don't know if I want to coach because I might not handle it well or because I want it to be their kind of thing? Like how did that conversation first even start?
I was always the type where I was excited when I had the opportunity to coach. And as you remember, I didn't always get the opportunity simply because
Yeah.
I traveled often and I had my speed academies when you guys were really little. But when I was able to, like at the YMCA when you were first grade, and then Bailey eventually got up there and I was able to do it for a season, I looked forward to it. I loved it. And I think, Jay, I intuitively always knew. I think my approach and my the culture that I brought to parent child coaching was important for other coaches to see, and other moms and dads and
Hmm.
kids. And I knew that, so I relished the opportunity because I've always been a youth advocate, phys ed teacher for,
Yeah.
since the later 80s. And so I knew how important that environment is. And I saw parents that didn't understand that culture and almost stole their child's sporting opportunities and youth opportunities by being very demeaning, very overly
Yeah.
demanding, and taking it from them. So I really wanted that so that you guys didn't get a parent that treated you guys that way. So I tried to be involved as much as I can because I knew how important the youth experience was.
For sure. No, that's awesome because now that I'm stepping into the role of coach, I am seeing that even more quickly. I saw it a lot as like player to teammates, and like how their parents react and how they did, but it's like weird. I feel like it's gotten even worse, and I don't know if it's even like the area that I live in where it's very high standard and everything. Like the school system is very high standard. They're all competing for top universities, you know what I'm saying? So it's like in everything they do, they take excellence to this kind of in my opinion, kind of unreasonable standard, because it's very, very like pressure filled. You know what I mean? To the point where it's like I felt like I had to give my girls days off of practice because of their schooling, stuff like that. So it's very, very heavy in those regards. So that's like really awesome. That, well, also too, it's like family wise, if you look at like even like your dad, my grandpa, like all of those things, like it's just a line of coaches. So it's like I feel like there's been a high standard, or a just what's the word I'm looking for? Just like an example, you know what I mean, from the get go. So I think that's like really awesome. But um, okay, let's ask a question here. So for parents who are struggling right now with like, I just can't help it. Like I feel like I have to say something to my kid. I just can't hold my tongue. Like, what do I do? Like, what do you say to those parents? Because those are conversations that I'm having. Like just saying, like trying to be positive and kind of too nice, and just saying like, oh, it's the long game, you got to trust it, which is very much true. But it's like, what would you say to parents who are coming to you and they're like coach, I can't hold my tongue. Like how do you help me in that?
That's not an uncommon conversation I've had with many parents, and for a lot of them, I just said, don't come, don't watch them.
Yeah.
As much as it might be something that maybe your child wants you there, but maybe they don't. I have a situation with a player that plays for me now. He's two different players. When his dad's not around, he's the most kind, very special kind of player with his teammates. He sees them open, he hits them. When his dad's there, he becomes the biggest gunner, bad shot attitude you see. And I was warned of that before I took the job, because he was there prior. And I see it, and I feel really bad for the kid, because the dad's stealing this kid's opportunities. But the one thing I'll tell them, first of all, is if you can't handle it, don't go, because it isn't about you. Obviously, as a mom and a dad, you want to enjoy the experience and be there for them. But if you're ruining the experience, don't go, because the experience is way more valuable than the mom or dad being there, because kids are used to competing and playing at the park or at the playground or in phys ed. They play without mom and dad there. So it's not that unforeign to them. But I think when they're there and they're taking away the pure enjoyment and the sporadic type of play that's going to happen, and sometimes maybe doesn't look really well, the kids should feel okay with that happening. But they don't, because they know they're probably going to get yelled at, and they might get yelled at during the game, which puts all the focus now on that parent, which is just unfortunate. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I try to tell parents, if, this is a conversation with a dad actually a while back, is if you're sitting at the game and your son makes a mistake, do you really think he doesn't know he made a mistake? Or when I coach girls, you guys, you knew of one example. I actually played more with Bailey than with you, but one dad was just brutal. And it was kind of like, is it that important to you to take your child's experience away? Because that's exactly what you're doing. You're adding zero benefit, no benefit at all, but you're taking away. And if you're having a difficult time with that, you really need to not come. Just make up an excuse why you can't make it. Don't come, because here's the thing, Jay, and this is what you probably found even at the next level, is when parents do that at a game, it doesn't just affect that child, it affects the other children or college players even, because they get affected by their teammate getting berated by a mom or a dad, and it affects them as well. So those are the two things. Number one, don't come. Number two, just take a step back, hold your tongue, and realize you're actually hurting, you're not helping. So
for that is a good point about like, it's not just like your child you're affecting, like you're also affecting the team. And there's two examples. Is like, one, it's like when it was probably junior year when I was like subbing for that AAU team and stuff. I just remember I felt like obviously being a point guard, being the leader of the team, all those kinds of things, you just naturally kind of take on the burden of like your team, and me just also being just super like intact with like my friends or my teammates' emotions. I always just felt like I was that kind of like soundboard for them, or like I would put myself in that position. And it was almost like there were some games where I just felt like I was like counselor that day and just always trying to like emotionally encourage my teammates, because I'm like, I'm sorry, your parents are like distracting right now, and I feel it, and I feel bad for you, you know what I mean, and I feel very like my heart goes out to you. And then also too, it's like coaching even now younger, middle school age and stuff, and just hearing some of the parents and how like in practice it's actually a lot. And I think it actually affected me as a coach in practice because the parents were allowed to be in there, and I just felt like it was just like not them critiquing my coaching, but them constantly just over my shoulder with their kid. And I felt like I couldn't coach the way I wanted to coach because they like, because I had to be the what's the word, like kind of like the fan, whereas like the parents were like the bad guy, where I feel like it should be opposite. Like your coach should quote unquote be more of like the bad guy. Like if you're mad at your coach or you didn't like practice or it was hard, you go to your parents for that soundboard. And I felt like I couldn't be, and I'm not necessarily like a tough, like in your face, like kind of coach. But like, when there's times that you need a coach and you be stern, I felt bad doing it to these 10 to 14-year-old girls because their parents were down their throat in practice. And there was actually two cases where I actually had to yell. I got so fed up with it. And I had to yell across the court to parents to say, stop. I have it. I'm the coach. Like I literally had to say, remind them that I am coaching. And it was incredible to me how like I'm like, why do I have to deal with this? You know what I mean? As a coach. So it just really sucks. Or like seeing like some of the girls like cry. Like I had a dad, I had a dad literally mad at me because I told him practically to stop talking because he's yelling at his daughter as she's like doing a shooting drill, and she just wasn't shooting that well. She just it was just one of those practices. She just wasn't shooting that well, and he was always just like every shot, every shot, every shot, critiquing one thing about her shot, and she's crying, and I literally had to tell him, stop, she's crying. Those were the exact words that came out of my mouth. And he got so mad and walked out, and apparently told the other coaches, I didn't say anything. And I'm like, you did, because she's crying. Like, and I heard you. I'm not just like making this up. I don't like confronting people in the first place. So I wouldn't confront you if there wasn't an issue. But the one thing on the flip side that I've noticed that actually makes me really sad, and I kind of like, I do it because I just want to encourage, but I do it to kind of like wake the parents up, where it's like the parent will say everything negative about their child. Their form was off, they were dribbling not too hard, their pass sucked. But the minute they make a layup, the minute they make a shot, the minute they make a good pass, they're silent. And I'm like, really? So you have the energy to be super negative to your child, but you don't have the energy to encourage your child that they actually did something good. And so that's where it's very frustrating, and I'll be 10 times louder, and I'm a very like active encouraging coach. Like I want to be that encouragement soundboard for them, but I'll even be like 10 times louder to be like good job, or like, you know, those kinds of things. So that's like been really tough, honestly, on even like just my heart and like soul. Like it's soul sucking, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, oh, like I feel for them.
That's why there have been communities that have banned parents from watching their kids at events, at going to baseball games, basketball games, volleyball. They banned them because it got so bad and so negative, and the parents went at each other. You know, they're stealing the youth experience. That's part of my motto and my mission now is, you know, bring youth sports back to kids, families, and communities. And we've got parents that just don't get it. And it's a very selfish, very overbearing personality and aspect to parenting that is the kind of the ugly side, and it should be shame. They should be ashamed of themselves to do that to a child, because they have to have, the kids have to have, and when I say kids, I'm talking high school as well. They have to have the freedom to fail. They have to have the freedom to not be at their best, even emotionally and mentally and physically, to be down a little bit. and they have to be able to hear one voice, and that's their coach's voice. Because a really big avenue that happens, and it happened this weekend. I have a particular dad that just gets on his son. You got to do this. You got to do that. And the dad come up to me between one of our games. He come up and he said, "Yeah, I told him he's got." And I said, "We don't do that. Why would you do? I don't do that. That's not how we play." So
Mhm.
your son now is stuck in the middle. Does he listen to his dad, who he loves dearly, or does he
Mhm.
listen to his coach? And if he doesn't listen to his coach, he's going to sit down. And that's exactly what happened, because
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
listened to his dad. He didn't listen to me, what I'm trying to do. We're in the summertime. I'm not putting in all these offenses, and we're just trying to play hard, space the floor, create some stuff. And so you got a parent barking from the stands saying, "Do
Mhm.
this, do that." Well, that's not what they're going to do. Now the kid is called. What are they going
Yeah.
to do? So that's really, it's a dangerous game they're playing when they do that. And they don't think of it that way. They think of it as, my kid, he's got to do this and that. And the only thing I
Mhm.
remember with you, Bailey, and now Brennan, the only talk I always had with you guys afterwards was effort. If you were
For sure.
lazy and you didn't work hard, it was kind of like, come on now, you're representing yourselves and your team and your
Mhm.
coaches. You can't not play hard. You might not score.
Mhm.
You might turn the ball over, but defense travels. Defense you can have all the time. You can play hard. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, yep, it's let the kids be kids and let them play.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, there's just so much. I feel like this conversation is just like so much to digest, and it could be like a 3 hour podcast. But it's like, even just like from, okay, you're a veteran coach. You've been in this game for what, almost 30 years,
5
25
years
years?
this year, yeah.
Aging you now. but you started young. We'll give you that excuse. But but what would you give advice to like me or other young coaches who like we don't have kids? So sometimes I feel like, how do I relate to a parent and like tell them those things, though, from a standpoint of like, even though I don't have kids, you know what I'm saying, like, trust me in what I'm saying, because I know I can't relate to like having kids and like having an expectation for them, or like even that feeling of like you just want to correct them, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand that. But sometimes I feel like it's hard for me to like tell the parents this, but also from a standpoint of them trusting in me and as coach. So what would you say for that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, sometimes you're a young coach, you don't have kids, but that has very, very little to do with still being a good person and being someone that understands the effect on your players from negative outside input from parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So um, that's an avenue that you don't need to go down as a parent. You can be a young coach and say, now wait a minute, mom or dad, that's mean. Why are you telling
Yeah.
your son or your daughter that during a game when now all of a sudden they're flustered and they're frustrated
Mhm.
and now they don't play well and it's all because of you? So why would
Yeah.
that be fair? So you don't really necessarily have to have kids to understand it. Now, when I did have kids, I understood the long-term effect more, because we would come
Mhm.
home together, and if you guys
For
played
sure.
poorly or you lost a tough game, I saw the long-term effects of it, how it bothered you, and it was difficult. But it doesn't mean that I had to have kids to understand a parent yelling at them is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the one thing I would do, though, Jay, and you and I have talked about this, and I've talked with many other younger coaches on this, is have your standards that
Yeah.
you're going to uphold your program by. And when I have my parents' meeting, I have my kids' meeting, my call-out meeting, I tell them the standards, what we're going to do. I tell the parents the exact same thing, and I make it very clear to them. I say, my job is to produce the best product I can, and your kids are a part of this program. None of them are any bigger than the program, right? Including me. But I said,
Yeah.
your behaviors are going to have a lot to do with how successful we're going to be as a parent. And it's funny because some of the some of the dads are nodding their head, others are like kind of shaking their head, like, who's this guy telling me? And I have no problem kicking a
Yeah.
dad out of practice. I did it this past year. I had a couple of them actually. I told them, I walked over and I said, you can either leave or sit down, but you're not involved in this practice at all. I've allowed you to walk in and sit. That's a mistake. You won't be allowed in again. And they were pretty good about it after that, after I made it
Mhm.
clear. But because I had a parents meeting and I said that, you're not allowed to come into my practice and have any input whatsoever. During practice, during a drink break, that's not your job. So if you can do that, that's a standard that my program is built around. We're going to behave the
Mhm.
right way. Players, coaches, parents. If you're going to,
Yeah.
if you're going to break a rule, okay, you got to get out. And you know me, Jay, I'm the type during a game, if I think a parent is that bad and I'll stop the game if I have to, and I'll grab the ball and I'm saying,
He's not
we're
lying.
not playing until this guy is out, and
He's not lying.
it's just, I think it comes down to the greater good, right?
Yeah.
When we're, bestowed a role of a head coach, you're a pretty powerful individual during that time. And I think you got to take it responsibly. And we're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing
Yeah.
many AAU environments destroying the greater good of youth basketball. We're seeing high school coaches not
Yeah.
respecting their role. And sometimes you got to step up and you got to keep players, parents, outside fans, family, and even to a point, sometimes administrators in check and say, this is how this program is going to work. And I think as a young coach, you just got to be willing to put those standards down. And here's the problem. Nobody likes that initial conversation because it's uncomfortable. But I would rather have that and have it over with than having months of it always sitting on my back, like, oh, here we go again. I don't want to say anything, and it will
Yeah.
ride you. It's like that book, Eat That Frog. The worst thing you got to do is eat a frog in the morning. Eat it right off. Do it right off. Get it over with. So I'm usually pretty quick with that stuff.
For sure. That's encouraging. That's the one thing, just being like very open and vulnerable, that I think just from person to coach. And I think it comes with experience, because I'm just naturally not somebody who likes confrontation. Like, I'll have tough conversations, but I just don't like it. And that's been like tough. That was literally actually like when I was younger, like before I even wanted to coach. Literally one of the reasons why I was like, I don't know if I'm even ready to step into a coaching position is because I just didn't want to deal with the parents. And I wouldn't say like it's not as dramatic as I've had traumatic experiences with like you and dealing with parents, because you handled it very well and I didn't feel the like weight of that. But like I just naturally would see like how you dealt with it, or like how parents would always say things, or like kids and those things, and also with like all the other like cousins and uncles and aunts that like coach in our family, and being able to like kind of see those and hear those stories and stuff. It was just naturally very, very uncomfortable for me. But there was such a difference from like a middle school team that I coached versus a high school team that I coached, when the standard was set of parents, you're not going to say anything like that, versus there's an open door for those, like, not even just the conversation, just open doors of being like honestly just rude to your child, like those kinds of standards, or just even to the coach or whatever. So that was really good, and honestly that was very like helpful in the standpoint of like now that like training and building that training business, and having parents that I've been very fortunate with. Like, I think parents as I'm training, like a lot of them aren't in the sessions, or they'll go walk, because we do a lot of like outdoor stuff. But that's like a good thing to kind of like just make a standard in my training, saying like, parents, look, I'm super open. Like, I want a relationship with you, like, because I am training your daughter. You are trusting me in this development and this journey in your daughter's game and whatnot. So I do want a relationship with you so that we trust each other. But this is my standard for training. And I don't want to feel interrupted, or that I can't do my job that you're paying me to do because you're trying to coach your daughter. Like, you might as well not pay me. Go coach her. You know what I mean? So, and also too, I feel like having those sessions is like an escape for them, and not necessarily like an escape from their parents, but it's like, this is the one-on-one time I get with them. And I want the court wherever I'm at to be a very safe environment and that they enjoy to go. So that's a really good thing. Another topic that I've noticed we've talked about a lot is that I feel like recently, especially with AAU culture, club culture, how it's more competitive to play in college or be like, especially with social media. I think social media also blew this up because it's like, oh, this person's getting invited to this camp and then they're here, they're playing this or they're getting this offer or like whatever. I feel like parents, this is just my outside observation. I haven't had any like conversation with parents directly, but I feel like parents are filled with so much fear right now, especially with like, oh, if my child's not on this team, they're not going to get looked at, or like if they're not getting this minutes, the coach hates them. If they're, you know what I'm saying, like this, like how can I, like I literally have, I really don't know of many girls that I am coaching right now. I know of like a few, but the majority of them are playing on 2 to 3 teams right now. And it is crazy. Like it is to the point where I hear conversations and it is so normal for them to play 4 games in one day. Like there's been multiple times where they've like had a jersey and then they bring their other jersey because there's another game that they got to go play and then they got to come back. And everybody wants game experience. But I'm like, but your child's not getting better. Like they keep making the same mistakes and people literally look at me like I'm crazy because they're like game. You know what I'm saying? But I'm like, well, but where are they at in practice, or why they're not taking practice seriously? So you're playing a lot of games, but their skill development, they haven't gotten better. You know what I'm saying? And so what would, again, this is a whole other conversation that we definitely could go down. But like, what would you say to the parents that are filled with that fear? Like, my child has to do this. I keep trying to tell them it's the long game, you have to trust, and I'll be very open with my story and say, look, because of my height, because I was smaller, like I got looked over a lot. Like I still played, like I still started, I still had the minutes, but I got looked over because of physically where I was. But then we kept working, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, no, she just surpassed this person. You know what I'm saying? So, sorry. I had a little,
Yeah,
but yeah, what would you say to a parent with that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, so this is a conversation. I mean, I've been on 20 plus podcasts, just in the last few months, just on talking on this topic, this very topic. That's what people around the country now, because I'm a thorn in the AAU and travel, side,
Yeah.
and it's trying to make people understand. I'm trying to protect the 99% of us. I'm not worried about Bronny. I'm not worried about
Yeah.
the elite of the elite that are going to go pro. I'm not worried about them. They're going to be fine. Although I would say they don't need to play nearly as much as they are, because this is what, like, the parent who has their child playing 4 games in a day or 6 to 7 games in a weekend. I've talked to multiple. Matter of fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I was up in Providence, Rhode Island, speaking at an orthopedic clinic, Orthopedic University it was called, with physical therapists and orthopedists. And they're saying, Lee, the number of microfractures and major injuries that we're seeing in young kids now, high school age and early college first year, we used to see when they were 31, 32 years old. AAU is destroying the future of most of these kids. And I'm trying to tell parents, you are literally playing Russian roulette with your child's future. If they have the potential to be good, they're probably never going to reach it. You've superseded their physical ability to take on that much pounding. And it's like anything else. A car, eventually it's going to run where it just can't run anymore. The human body is amazing, but you keep pounding it through these developmental stages, it's over. You're not going to come back. That's why we're seeing a lot of these top level players, and the men and women who make it to the WNBA or the NBA or in Europe, they are missing years because of major injuries, like year-long to year 18 months recovery. because of the volume. So when I'm talking to parents now, I don't screw around with them. I'm like, you're messing with your child's future, and there is no proof, none at all, that what you're doing is helping them, but there's a ton of proof that it's hurting them. So why would you be afraid? Why would you be afraid to back off and actually improve your child's left hand or right hand, or improve their ball handling for 1 hour, get them in the gym, don't have them play travel ball every weekend. And if they're going to play travel ball, play with teams that get in one-day tournaments and they play a max of 2 games. That's my model. That's the basketball game model I've been talking about for a while now. And now they're getting great competition still, getting a couple good games in, and then they're done. Then they can go home. They can rest and go to their friend's birthday party. They can hang out with friends and sleepovers, and they could train. They could go get in the weight room and get stronger. So what I'm trying to tell the parents is fear, which I say as false evidence appearing real, which we know, right, it's a myth. There is no issue. If your child, your daughter or your son has the skill set, they can play at the next level if they want to play at the next level. And it doesn't have to be right when they graduate. It could be a year later. Maybe they want to get their feet wet with college. Maybe they don't want to do any more school for a year, and then they can go back. I ended up playing 4 years, but my first year I didn't play. I didn't like the school I was at and knew I was going to transfer, so I didn't play, so I didn't lose eligibility, and had a great college career. But too many parents and too many players are caught in this myth that travel basketball is the only way. Even college coaches are now saying, we are so sick of how kids play during AAU. We don't look at them as much. What we do is if we see a kid, we go back and watch their high school film. They'll get on Synergy or Huddle, and they'll watch them and they'll say, okay, now when the kid's really coached and he's playing against a team that had a chance to scout, and this kid sees the game really well. During AAU, they play like crap because it's selfish. They're not in shape. They're up and down, and their officials aren't calling fouls, and they're complaining. So people are fooled right now, Jay. They really are, because I've talked to too many people, and I've witnessed it, and I've watched it. And I think the best thing we did with you and Jay, or Bailey especially, was you guys were like these fill-ins in these AAU. If an AAU team needed somebody for a game, you guys would go and fill in. It was perfect. And then you could go the rest of the time. We'd go to the gathering place and work on our game, right? And do stuff. So I think parents have to understand there's a couple things that's going to happen. Number one is this physical abuse to the body because of the volume is going to be too much, and it's eventually going to catch them. All right. And we're seeing ACLs, microfractures, major hip injuries, major ankle sprains on the rise, which is cutting the playing career down right off anyway. And it's a direct response to too much volume without enough preparation and not enough recovery. So that's number one. Number two, and you are a good example of this. Kids go to college. They think this is it. They see the school. It looks like this is it. Man, I'm going to be thrilled, happy. How many kids, and there's a girl, a couple of girls you know really well from our area, our neighborhood in Indiana, that did everything all the way up, played AAU, played high school, got to the end. I'm done. I just don't want to play anymore. I did too much. I'm done. You actually, we trained a family. I trained one, and you trained a couple of the kids. This one family in town, dad was very overbearing. Daughter was a great high school player. Said, Dad, I'm done. I'm sick of it. I don't want to play anymore. That's what the parents are leading them down. As a parent, you got to be the adult in the room and say to the kid, they say, no, my friends are playing AAU. I want to play. No, you're not going to play this season. Let's go. We're going to go pick up another sport, or you can go to the rec center and we'll play pickup game. But you got to get them off the high volume. And if not, once the injuries start, it's too late. Because most of them aren't going to continue on to pros. So they're not going to have that chance. High school, they're going to be fighting injuries, and it's over. So that's it bothers me. It bothers me a lot because there's no need for that. And they can even even if you didn't know you were going to get a scholarship or whatever, you can go somewhere and walk on. If you're that talented, you can walk on and still play. And I've seen that many times.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Man, the amount of hot takes that were just said were amazing, but like it needs to be said because there was even times I called you about this. I told you I was at a AAU tournament club game and I was coaching and I was like talking to some of the parents and I literally said out loud because I was starting to get frustrated. I was starting to get a little bit passionate about the subject and I literally was like, I don't even know why I'm coaching club. Like I literally said that to the parents, which probably lost some trust in the parents after I said it. But I literally was like, but to my point though was like I'm frustrated as a coach because the execution is not there, but the execution is not there because we don't have enough time to work on it or because we're when we get to practice together, it's like team stuff, but then I've switched practices to more skill sessions because I feel like that's very important, but then when it comes to games, they're still young. They don't really know spacing or what to do or those, so I just feel very like as a coach like I can't fit everything in, you know what I mean, and it's really hard. So I totally get that, and it's just crazy. Like I'm so on the developmental side of these things, you know what I'm saying? So that's what's frustrating, and I've actually taken a step back though from in-game coaching because of also too it was mentally taxing on me. I was coaching high school and club and whatnot, and I was so mentally exhausted that I felt like I couldn't give my all to the girls, and that's where I had to take the step back, you know?
I mentioned something to your listeners. I think this is really important that they hear. So I got this coaching job, this high school, and became the head coach last year. So it hasn't even been a full year yet in respects to when I was hired. I was hired in July, later July. So we're getting there. But so this is what I did when I got the job. Parents were all asking, and the kids were asking about, hey, what, AAU, we're going to do this, and I said, no. I said, you can go do it if you want on your own, but we're not going to do that. We're gonna, and I was very sarcastic. I said, no. I said, I actually want our kids to get better, so we're not going to do AAU. And they're kind of like looking at me, like, oh, what do you mean? So anyway, this is what my program has done so far, and it's not done yet. We got a lot more
talk about that.
So when the season ended, all these teams around us, all these kids were joining AAU teams, and my kids were kind of nervous. And so I started a 4-week 3-on-3 tournament, 12-second shot clock, 12-minute games, fast paced, man, it spread the floor. The kids were learning. We had more fun. And I had parents actually who watched our games say, Coach, they'd come up to me and say, hey, Coach, I had more fun watching this than I did the regular 5-on-5 game. This was amazing. So they were like thankful their kids got a chance to be in it. So we did that. After that, I called up a school way down south called Marco Island, way down. Called up a high school. I said, hey, Coach, bring your team up. Let's scrimmage. So they came up and we scrimmaged. And what we did is the first few minutes, and you did this, I did this with you, and I brought some teams in. We went half court. They got the ball 10 times on offense. We got the ball when it was our turn 10 times. And the coach, I told the other coach, Coach, come on right now. I had officials come. And I said, Coach, come out here. I said, tell your kids, if we beat you backdoor, reset it. I'll reset it, and you teach your kids how to move. And so we did that. Then we went full court. So, let them just play it up and down. And then we went at the end, we went situations. Okay. So I said, all right, Coach, we're up by 3, 30 seconds to go. We got the ball. Play us. Ready, go. And we play. And then we switched it around. So, Jay, and here's the other thing we did. We finished. And so I brought all the kids, both teams, into the middle. And I picked one of my kids to kind of be a captain, and then one of their kids, you're a captain. And I said, okay, my kid, I said, you have to pick somebody from the other team to be on your team. And then their kid. So we ended up mixing. Every other kid was on the team, and we played a 2-minute tournament. And you were playing with the other team's kids as well.
Oh, that's so fun.
I had a dad the other day, and you know who it is because you coached his daughter, and his son plays with me. Yep. And he come up to me, he goes, that was the he goes, I remember you doing that. He goes, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen. He goes, the kids had so much fun. And so we finished. You know what we did when we finished? We went and ate together. We had mom brought some, we had pulled pork, pulled
So
chicken.
good.
Everybody, we sat
So
around
good.
together, and the coach said to me, he goes, why are we not doing more of this stuff? And it didn't cost a
God.
dime.
Yeah.
Didn't cost a dime. So then we finished that. I take my team. We go up to this place called 212 in Sarasota. It's a prep school, and they have postgraduate. We went up and scrimmaged them and did kind of the same thing. And then we played a travel team 2-3 different times. They just came over to us, no money, no cost. We had officials, and we played there. And so we're getting great development. We're getting competition. There's hardly any money being spent. I just make sure I buy insurance. I make sure everybody's covered. So we pay, and it's not real expensive, but get insurance for games. And the kids, and then we have our workouts where we spend a lot of time on skill development, a lot of time on tactical understanding. What do we do on a 2-on-1? What do we do on, on this situation? And the kids have gotten so much better, and there's been hardly any money spent. I don't have any parents complaining now. They're like, this is great. I don't have to spend $1,500 on lousy basketball. And so, and we have more coming. We actually have our April 3-on-3 series coming up again. And we're gonna, we've got different names for each one, each of these tournaments. And I got another team that's gonna come up and scrimmage us. So we're doing it the way it should be done. We're still developing, and parents are not spending money. Kids are getting developed, and they're resting. They're feeling good. And my kids have jobs, so they just work around that. It's perfect.
Yeah.
No, I really love that. And that just like sparks a lot of ideas too. Cause I think the biggest thing when I heard that, I heard two words, and it was like community, but also rest. And in that, and I think what you did is really encourage that sports can be a fun atmosphere again. And I know these kids have fun with like their teammates or whatever, but I feel like it turns into like, it's just super tiring. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that you were able to play and have that community while like you're eating around a table with each other is very, very important also for like the human experience. First of all, like we're called for relationship and community. So I think that that's super amazing. But also too is like we got to play really hard, and then we get to like eat after or rest, and like, but it was fun. I feel good. You know what I mean? It's like how many times after tournaments do you not feel good, or you have to recover, or like you turn right back around and you have another practice, you know what I mean? Like those kinds of things. So I just think that that's super encouraging and like a really, really awesome idea. And that just sparked a lot of like ideas in my brain of like things to do and whatnot. And I've talked to a lot of parents in the area and been like kind of those things like how we used to do, like 5 to 10 possessions, but then like the coach can stop it, you restart all the stuff, so you're learning through it. So like giving those ideas, but also too like parents are frustrated with their kids not knowing like spacing or how to move, but I'm like, how many of them are getting taught 1v1, 2v2, 3v3? So like every time I brought it up to parents, they've been super interested in like having like a class like that. So that's something that I'm like, wow, that'd be awesome to actually start, because they get to learn and it's like a safe space to learn as well. So I think that that's like really, really awesome for sure.
It's important. I think it's important for other coaches to hear that. You do not have to go push your kids in AAU, but it's important for parents to hear, gosh, that's right. Because at the end of the day, excuse me, what they want is development. They want their kids to be as good as they can. They think AAU is the way, but when you think about it, they're just playing in multiple games, highly fatigued and with pressure on them. So why would they go to a move that they've not worked on? Why would they go to a left-hand finish move when they've had no time? Because they look bad in front of their peers, in front of their friends, in front of their parents at an AAU event. And AAU is a cruel environment in many cases. You got kids sitting around with their team laughing at a kid who made a mistake. And that's tough for some kids to handle. So why put them in that environment? I've always said anyway, AAU should not start till 9th grade. And many of those kids shouldn't even be in it. And then if we just took the AAU model and said, okay, we're going to play no more than twice a month, one day a weekend, and no more than 2 games. And the other time we're going to develop. We're going to get 3-on-3 leagues and tournaments. Your cousin Jimmer
Yeah.
grew
Mhm.
up playing 3-on-3. They would go all over the state
Yeah.
and play 3-on-3 tournaments. That's
And he's
great.
literally in the 3-on-3 national team now.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
Which is crazy. And that's what's tough is that I've noticed in all the different states that I've like lived in and stuff where Indiana was very like team high school, like your school focus, right? Like club was a supplement to that, but you still were very much so like, no, I'm coming back to my high school. Where in California, they don't have middle school teams. Like your high school or your middle school does not have a team, so they have to play club or they have to play rec. So it's turned into this crazy like model and this thing because that's the only way they get games. But it's also like, again, I think it's a fear thing where it's like, well, everybody's in it, so my kid needs to be in it, like those things. But it's like, why not scale back and, like you said, play once a week or a Saturday, play no more than 2 games, or not even once a week, but like 4 games a month, quote unquote. But they're more like scrimmages. It's like practice, 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 play, instead of playing anywhere between 3 to 4 weekends a month, depending on what team you're with or how many teams you're with. So it's like I just try to encourage the parents on this stuff. But then also too, it's like, I mean, you experience this just in like your normal like training, but it was like sometimes I feel like I can just see it on the player's face that they're exhausted and I'm not getting a lot out of the session training them because I have to scale it back so much where it's just maybe it's like 45 minutes of form shooting because that's literally all they can handle right now. And I'm like, yeah, is that beneficial? Absolutely. Like we all got to form shoot, but it's also like, but you're paying me to train your kid to like get them better, and I feel like I can't get them that much better where it could if they were more rest, like they had more rest in them.
Yeah, and parents used to get frustrated with me when I would turn them away because they'd come to me and they were playing high levels of travel sports at the same time. They might have been playing soccer and basketball, travel sports, and they would come and want to train. And I always ask them, "What are you doing?" And I'd say, "Okay, I'll tell you what. When you're done, come see me because there's no benefit to you working with me right now. There's nothing I can do physically." And they're like, "Well, no, I mean, I think we could do." I said, "No, you think wrong." I said, "This is what I get paid to do. And your child right now, for me to add more volume to what they're already doing, we're just speeding up the process of getting injured and long-term injury. And sometimes it's a mental or an emotional injury, not always a physical injury." So yeah, sometimes you got to be willing to turn them away and say, "No, not this time. Wait." And I know it's hard to do when that's how you make money. But I think what happens is I used to earn so much respect from the parents who got it and said, "Well, geez, this guy's willing to turn us away." I would trust him. And that's how we always had good numbers of clients because people knew we were going to help them.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like for those who don't know, like you're one of the top strength coaches in the world, and I will very much brag on that, but it's also like you're in the room with these people though that are also considered the top, right? Like professional level, high collegiate level, high like, physical therapist and like anybody in like that sports world you've been in the room with and mentored those types of people. So it's like what you're saying is like it's not just like, oh, you just like are have a feeling about one thing and you're going with it. Like there's actual backing to this from these strength coaches, especially who are in the high level collegiate weight rooms and are training these athletes that are trying to get pro, or the strength coaches or physical therapist or any of those people that are in the professional room as well, and seeing that these long-lasting injuries are coming from this. And they're probably seeing it more now than they did even 5 years ago, because now it's like it's even more heavy. And I'm very fearful as a coach for what these kids are going to look like, these like 12-year-old girls that I'm coaching, what their bodies are going to go through by the time they're a senior in high school. And I would really hate for any of them to stop playing because of that. But I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more than what we would hope for that stop playing or turn to a different sport that maybe is less demanding, like physically on the body, than basketball is because of that stuff. So that's definitely like really, it's hard and to swallow, and it sucks because it's like you've seen it, and I've just been fortunate to also be in like those rooms and conversations, but it's like really hard when you're the minority in that thinking and trying to get the parents and the other coaches that you're surrounded by to kind of dive into that. So,
And that's the advantage of being older and being around for a long time. I'm at the stage now. I don't care if I hurt feelings. I don't do it intentionally. I don't mean to make parents feel bad about it, but I care more about their kid than I care about their parents' social identity in their community with, look at my kid on this team. But that doesn't float with me. It's more about their child having a great experience. And here's the other thing that I want is I want these kids to become an adult like yourself who now
hmm
still love the game enough to come back and want to play and teach their children how to play. I'm fortunate enough, there isn't a sport I probably couldn't teach you guys because I grew up playing all sports. I played everything, even
hmm
sports our school didn't have, we played. And because moms and dads are saying, no, my kid just needs to play soccer or volleyball or basketball at 9, 10 years old because they need to specialize. I'm like, you're crazy. You're ruining their opportunity to be not only a better player in their chosen sport when they get there, but you're ruining their opportunity to have a greater relationship with their children
Yeah.
because they have exposure to all these different activities in sports, and that's family community right there. So yeah, it's
yeah. That's awesome. Well, I love like this conversation, and it's I knew that we would get on this like tangent of it and stuff, even though like the podcast is about parent to kid relationships. But I knew that this would come up for sure because it's just something that we're always chatting about and just being able to experience from like all different levels and stuff. So I think that's really exciting. But kind of switching gears now to just me being child, you being dad, parent, like coaching that dynamic, and how it was really a very positive experience. And one of the things, like, first off, that I want to touch on is you mentioned it kind of earlier, but what I think you and mom for so much is that you allowed Bailey and me and then now Brennan to like have our own story with the game. Like like people would come up to me all the time and be like, how is it playing for your dad? You know what I mean? Because they just know the negative experience that them as parents give their child. They're very aware of it. That's the crazy part to me is that they're aware of it and they know that they're hard on their kid in not such a great way or they wouldn't be making that comment. And they are shocked to find out that we have a great relationship. And I actually prefer you to be my coach over anyone. And it wasn't because of like playing more or because of whatever. It's because you literally saw me as a player on the floor. Like, you know what I mean? And you didn't get mad at me for making a mistake because I'm your daughter. You got mad because it's like, dude, you're just being dumb on that like thing. But it wasn't like obviously you welcome mistakes, but it was just like if like the effort. Like I remember one time you didn't sit me much, like in the way of like because I did something. I remember this one time. I don't know if you remember this, but it was like a club. Is it like a club game or like we played like a high school summer league or something? I don't know what I was doing, but it was like a timeout, and I think you were just mad at the team. And I like was staring at the scoreboard, and I like literally it was the simplest thing. I think I was staring at the scoreboard. You were mad because we weren't executing. I'm obviously the point guard, and then you were like, "If you're not gonna pay attention, sit." And you like sat me. Because
well,
I looked at the scoreboard. I don't know if you remember, but it was because of a team thing, and you were setting a precedent. Like my point guard's not paying attention, but it was I'm your point guard. I'm not your daughter. But I remember that, and I was like, oh, okay.
well, it's so funny is I literally just did that the other day with my point guard, who
Yep.
I barked out something that I wanted to have happen, and he ignored it, and instantly he was subbed out, sat down, and sat there till I was ready for him to go back in and to make a point.
Yeah.
And I've had kids who, when I asked them to sub in, they got up lazily and with kind of just a bad attitude. I said, sit down. You're not the next person go in. And And the whole thing is, it's whether it was you, Bailey, or Brendan, who's coming up underneath me, it's not because you're my child. It's because my expectation, and we talked about earlier in the beginning,
Yep.
setting standards. Well, these are my
Yeah.
standards. And I hold myself to them because I beat myself up a lot after games when I'm like, I should have did this, I should have did that. Well, I'm going to do the same to my players. I'm going to give them a hug later, and I'm going to let them know I care about them and all. But this is the standard we're going to live by, and I think
Yeah.
that's what we all have to do. So, and I
Yeah.
think the other thing is being a parent and the coach. My responsibility as a parent never goes away, even when during those 2 hours of a practice or an hour and a half of a game. It never goes away. So I'm always going to protect you guys, and I'm always going to, push you and expose you to higher levels of work and thinking and intensities and effort and attitudinal behaviors and things like that. So that's a responsibility that I have to keep in front of me, but I'm never going to take away your enjoyment of the game because I'm a parent that's immature and can't handle coaching my own child. I've always said to parents, if you can't do it, that's your problem. You're an immature person because you should be able to, be able to coach them and love them and get on them, but you shouldn't treat them any different than another kid during those practice hours. So, yeah, definitely.
For sure. Well, that was also too something I respected a lot, is that there was always like those conversations. I remember multiple times you being like, you and mom both like, hey, guess what? You don't have to play in college. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that you want this, but you don't have to. So every expectation or standard or like you being quote unquote hard on me all came from me verbalizing it and saying, yes, I give you permission to do this. Because also too, I wanted to start varsity. I wanted to be a point guard. I wanted to get a college scholarship. And I knew that you had the resources and the tools to help me get there. So it's like, okay, yes, hold me to that standard. Just like you would have, like, if I had a separate personal trainer, I had a separate coach. You know what I'm saying? It's that same thing where it's like the separation, but it's also cool because I feel like I had even more trust because you're my dad. And I get to go home and we get to chat. And it was like those things where it was like after every game, it was like a minimum of like a 2-hour conversation. It was always like starting from your office to leading to the car to leading to sitting on the kitchen table, like chatting, all that stuff. So it was just always a continued conversation, but it was like, I wanted it. You know what I'm saying? That was it.
And that was the important thing. And I always told you guys this, and because I know Bailey was different. Bailey, you know how Bailey doesn't always want to talk, doesn't always express things. And so we wouldn't talk, but I always said to even you're more like me, and you like to have the talk. You like to have your express your feelings, how you felt in that moment during the game. And I'm much like that. So you wanted that more, and that helped us kind of move through the transition from that game to what our expectations will be in the next practice and game. Bailey didn't. Brennan is like kind of closer to Bailey. Sometimes he'll ask if he's probing me. Like he'll say, well, what did you think of this shot right here? Then I know he's thinking about it and he needs me. Like he needs to hear my thoughts because there's something hanging heavy on him. Even if it was good, even if he had a great game, he needs to express that. So I just always waited for you guys to let me know, do we want to talk about it now or do we not? And if we did, we did. If we didn't, we didn't, and I was always okay with that. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that and I even think too it's funny how me being a coach now, everything just fell naturally to like what it was, because there was times where I thought I was never going to like do anything with basketball like ever again. Like I was just so like done with the sport in that way. And I was like, well, literally I remember saying like, well, maybe I'll coach when like I have kids and like, they're in their little like rec league and I can just like, coach. That was literally like where my brain was. So I think what was so awesome is like you and mom both let things naturally happen, even if there was like, I'm sure there was like ounces where it's like you would love for me to be a coach. You would love to step in now. You would love for me to, play this, that, what, what I'm saying? But I never felt forced. And actually, I think there was like a time where I was more annoyed with you and Mom saying you don't have to play college, you don't have to continue, when I went through a hard time, because I was like, no, what do you mean? You guys were on the opposite side of like giving that space of you don't have to play, when it was like, I feel like a lot of the parents were like opposite, where it was like, no, you play, or like, why are you quitting, or like, what, those kinds of things. So that was a definitely a different dynamic for sure. But I think it was just, I don't know, I just really enjoyed that experience, and I hope one day if I do coach, my kids or whatever, like that relationship is there. You know what I mean? Because I would love to like, keep that going and whatnot, because I think it's like super special and stuff, and it's really, really special to share that, I think, and I think it's like awesome. And it is funny, people always say it, they're like the firstborn or the oldest daughter, if she's like the first one, is always like the dad. And I hear those and I'm like, yep. I'm like, the accuracy in that is like kind of scary. So it's just funny. Like, I'm like, I just felt like it was just meant to be like, you be my coach and I be the player, and then hopefully live on the Taft legacy of coaching and whatnot. I'll have to keep my last name when I get married one day, just to keep the legacy going. But okay, so also too, last thing, I just want to look back on some memories of us coaching and playing for you. And I mean, it was like, high school, I had you right off the bat as a freshman. So I thought that was like awesome. And then there was like a year in there that I didn't have you just because of a school change. And then we ended up getting to coach. But I just want to like ask too, because I have a few memories, but like and I could go first while you think, but like what was probably one of your favorite memories getting to coach me, and also too like a funny or like an embarrassing one, or even one that you wanted to probably like hit me in the head. Like those, whatever, like I'm open. Go ahead, shoot your shot.
That was the most memorable in terms of the joy that I had seeing you be so excited was when we won county.
Yeah.
Your senior year. Yeah, that was early in the year because we played county like right off the bat. A lot of times people don't play their counties till we played right off. And you not only had a very good game, 20, probably 5, 6 point, whatever, but you also hit the game winning shot. And it was fun seeing you rally around with your teammates afterwards, because it was so funny. I remember, I think it might have been Bailey, and then there's somebody else. You hit a big shot with like 30 seconds to go or whatever. And everybody jumped, my coaches, everybody. And I was down in my typical half kneeling, and I never budged. My thought right off was defense, get back. And I never moved. And they were like, well, how do you not? Mom might have been even like, how do you not? And I said, well, because number one, I'm thinking the game wasn't over yet. If it was a game winner, like she hit it and the buzzer went off, that's different. But I knew we weren't it wasn't out of reach yet. There was still time for them to go down and play. But to see the game end and to see you jump in the middle and everybody get together, and that's special, because that's not everybody gets a chance to have that. So that was a cool one.
Then, I'm like low-key getting emotional thinking about it.
Yeah, that was fun. That was really cool.
I'm like,
and then it's so such opposite end of the spectrum, because I remember you when that game went over, that county, you were in the middle of the gym, and it was Center Grove's gym, right? We were in Center Grove. That's where it was held. And you
screw you, Center Grove.
Jumped and hit the ground and everything. And then the last game of that season, sectional finals, same court, different team, but it was their court. And we lost it. And I can remember looking at you in the back. You were on the left corner area of the court. Same bent over position, hands down, but tears from season was over, high school career was over, versus tears of joy winning that really big game. So those were two things I always remember. And then the one that was kind of it's funny now that I look at it, but you were a freshman.
I know
And,
this is coming up.
I know
first
it's
game,
one.
yeah. I think it was our first game or close to it. We played a team that we hadn't beaten, and we pressed the whole game, and we're spitfires, and you're in there, and so I don't know, you fouled someone or I forget what it was, and you complained to the official, and you kept going. And so I'm kind of like, hey Jay, and you didn't hear me. You kept yapping, and I finally went, Jalen Taft, and it was funny because the whole crowd laughed because when the first and last name comes out, that's one thing. But when the middle name gets in there, then it's kind of like
When the middle name.
and then and then you were good. But it was funny because all the parents, even the other coach, they're all kind of smirking and laughing. But that was a funny one.
You made me the next day like a laughing stock at the school. People were going around because it was like a smaller school. So I was going down the hallway and everyone was like, Jalen Taft! Like they were yelling. And I was like, hee hee. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, that was funny. No, that was my funny story for sure. That was like the funny one. One I really liked this senior year is like, we had a handshake and it was like before every game, like before every tip off. We did the handshake and that was like very special and stuff. And it just shows like, again, like I like legit am and was like getting emotional, like you explaining that. And I didn't think I would, but it's like that relationship between us is so special. And like, that's like one of the things, like, I think my favorite year ever of basketball was senior year of high school. I would like, honestly, it's one of those things where like, I know you don't want to live in the past, but that's like the year that I would relive if I had that. Cause it was just overall, just like, I felt like the most confident in my game. I felt the most, like even as a leader successfully. We had a great record. Obviously we lost in that last game. That was like really tough. And I did not think we would lose type of thing. And just even my overall like joy of playing the game was there. You know what I mean? And then college and everything went downhill from different angles. So that was like obviously like such a cool thing. And I actually really like how you said that. I never thought about that, how it was like a full circle moment in a, I guess not so great way, but great way with County being like, I remember that just like the excitement and winning and that was a very special thing for me because I wanted to win it for you. And that was like the biggest thing because I know you're my dad, but I also mean it by I think you're one of the greatest coaches that I've ever come across and like a lot of players I've come across. And I took it so personally that you didn't ever win like a state or like, like one of those things. So I was like, you know what? Like this is my gift to you. So that game was a game from the Lord because I played really good. I remember that was one of my highest scoring games. I hit essentially like kind of a game winning shot because it was like what put us ahead and then foul. Yeah, it was the last one, foul trouble, like hearing that excitement, being able to do that like for you, like that was like the biggest thing. And then also too, I remember there was a reporter that ran up to me right after and was talking. And I just remember like crying during the like interview because I was just like, this was for you. So I think that was like a really special moment that I loved a lot, like during that year. And then I took the burden a lot of like not winning sectionals for you because I was like, oh, we did it. We're here. Like, I just want to get him this sectional title. And then that was a crazy game within itself. Like, honestly, it was a really good game to like, if you were going to lose, like that's not a bad game to lose on. I think, what was the score? It was like 90-85 for a high school championship game. It was crazy. Overtime, it was crazy. But that was like one of those moments where it was like, I didn't like I tell people this and I'm like, I can never prepare anyone for like that last game because I remember, I think we were shooting free throws at the end, but it was obvious like even if we made both of them, like we wouldn't have won. And I'm not kidding. I think there was like 0.5 seconds on the clock. Like it literally stopped. And I wasn't feeling anything, like nothing. I was like not believing that this is the end of the game, even though I knew it was. And the minute the buzzer went, it was like, that's when I went, bent over like on my knees, and it was like a reaction. Like I didn't even like, I don't remember physically actually doing it. It's just my body's reaction. And so it was like really crazy how, yeah, that like full circle moment, like on that court, experiencing those two different emotions, which very easily could have flip-flopped on those cases. So yeah, I would definitely say the handshake and then the county championship was my favorite moments and stuff. And then I also say I think my funniest moments with you that I really enjoyed was just how you were with refs. I laughed so hard. I'd be like on the court and just how you would like you were never rude or like that coach, but like you just knew you were right and they knew that you were right. And their reaction to you is priceless. Like even like one of my favorite things you ever said to a ref was we were playing I think this was freshman year. We were playing like, was it Burris? Is that what the school name was? That one school? It was like Burris or something. Yep. And you you got mad and like something hit the like medicine kit and the ref was like, don't slam your clipboard. You go, it wasn't. It was the medicine kit. Like you like something like that where it was like just so sarcastic, but it was like the funniest thing to me. And like so stuff like that I just thought was like really funny and just the conversations also too, I have to mention this. I am, how we go back to, I am your daughter through and through. Like I am. It is unreal to me, the mannerisms I pick up coaching that are just like you. It is ridiculous. I'm like doing like the pant thing, like you pull your pant. I do that even with sweatpants. I'm like coaching in sweatpants or even leggings and I'm doing it where you don't, or even like the bending or the kneeling over, like those kinds of things, like very active on the crossing my arms. I do this weird thing where I like put my foot up. So like my first year when I coached in heels, like the heel part would be on the ground, but my toes are up. And I had just always this funny stance, but it's so funny. I wish that there was like photos, like better photos of like that and just comparing, because it's insane the mannerisms I have that you had too. So it's so funny, but yeah, just wanted to relive those little moments. But awesome. This has been such an amazing podcast, and I'm so glad I got to have you on as a guest. Before we head off, is there anything that you want to say or like kind of plug? I know you're doing some basketball stuff that people can get resources through, so if you want to like talk about that, and I'll link them down below before we head off.
Thank you. Absolutely. First of all, yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Jay. This is always fun and getting to relive and just talk about this. And it's so good of you to bring this topic up, because too many parent-child relationships are ruined for a long time because of, really an immature parent. The children are going to act the way they're going to act because they're not in control of their emotions yet.
Absolutely.
And the parents have to be the one to be the adult and know when to, lead appropriately. But the one thing I think parents might be interested in is if they want to know how the youth basketball experience really should be developed, they can check out Basketball Game Model. That's a really basketballgamemodel.com. If they go there, it's I forget what it is. It's like $20-something or whatever it is. And it's things that they should be looking to get their kids in. And I always tell parents this: you have all the power with these travel sports. If you say no, my child will not do that anymore, and a whole community of parents do that, and you guys all step up and say, I want 1-day tournaments, no more than 2 days, and I want more 3-on-3 leagues and tournaments, and they have no choice but to do that or start them yourself. So that'll give them something to look at. And and then that's it. And if they go to leetaft.com, they can pretty much find anything else they want there. But yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dad, for being on the podcast. I will link everything down below so everyone can get it. But this has been such a fun conversation. I know we're Tafts through and through, so we could probably talk for another hour and a half. So We're just getting warmed up. So I guess there's going to be a part 2 because I'm sure with some of the things that were said, there's going to be some hot takes and we'd love to like revisit that. So if there are any questions that you guys would like us to continue to talk about or me ask my dad, like please leave those in the comments below because I would love to revisit those. With that being said though, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. New podcast episodes every week and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.